Or if I was looking at a lot of poems on the experience of immigration, then I'll say, oh yeah, you know, they all took planes, that's why all the poems talk about a certain aspects of travel. But it's both the poet's background and whatever objective reality it is that produces the poem. Yeah. And so both sides of the equation, I think, are equally important. Okay. Finally, if I wasn't relatively pampered and well-to-do Singaporean, okay, I'm not lah, okay, but if I was less pampered and less well-to-do, I wouldn't have been so shocked at the fact that, you know, people kill animals, right? If I didn't keep pets at home, if my dad didn't love his star tortoise in the backyard to bits, I wouldn't have responded to another spotted animal in the same visceral way that I did. Yeah, I grew up in Tanah Merah, and our house was next to a forest, and the cats used to come into our backyard where we had an outdoor stove to give birth on the stove, because the stove is warmer than the rest of the forest, right? So they used to give birth on the stove, and the next morning when my mom will go out to cook lunch, she'll be like, no! And then she'll like throw out the litter. But to throw out the litter, you know, you can't touch the cat, otherwise you can't touch the kitten, otherwise the mom will disown it, you see. If any other scent is on the kitten, the mom will disown it. So we had to, you know, like put it in a huge plastic bag, and then put it in a box, and then put it in a towel, and then put it out. Yeah. So I suppose that the experience of dealing firsthand, and to top it off, my mom was terrified of cats. So I had to do all of that, right? Yeah. So I guess the experience of dealing directly and intimately with real life just born kittens and their placentas made me so aware of how alive this skin once was, in that sense. If I came from somewhere where there were no leopards, somewhere where there were few cats, maybe, a catless environment if there is one, I probably wouldn't have written a poem about this scene at all. But because of the background of who I am, that's how the poem turns out. Okay. Yeah. So, yes. Okay, what else there? Oh, there are some points that I jotted down that I can't make sense of anymore, so I'll just skip them. Oh yeah, I wanted to comment on the irony of the cat's skin, which is supposed to be its camouflage, being the thing that makes it stand out even after it's dead, and even after the cat that's inside the skin is gone. Yeah, that occurred to me when I was reading my poem as well. And yeah, it's I suppose stalking rabbits or whatever they kill, right, in the forest, the leopard would never have thought that one day, you know, its skin would end up here. And in the same way, as poets, as writers, as readers, or in general as people, we don't really think about what will be left of us when we are gone. We don't really think about what kind of imprint we will leave in the objects or bits of ourselves that we leave behind. I certainly hope no one here leaves your skin hanging anywhere when you're dead and gone. But the skin is, in a sense, a parallel to what are the many other things that we could possibly leave behind. A collection of poetry, the real difference that is made when you teach someone to write, someone like a kid recovering from cancer, or things like that, which I started to think about after thinking about this poem. What was I going to leave behind? Yeah. And of course we all know the poem Ozymandias, right? By Shelley. And at the end, the lone and level sand stretched far and wide. There is nothing left of the statue in the very long run. And for all of us who are econ students, we know in the long run we are all dead, right? Yeah. So I suppose that is the tension that faces all of us when we move beyond writing poems to go on to process life as a whole, what we will eventually leave behind, and what kind of difference, whether real or in the minds of the people we know, that we will leave, and whether that will shock someone walking in the market years from now. Yeah. So that's all I have to share for now. There was another poem which I was planning on reading. It's just below that. Do you all want to listen to Ren Chun first, or am I already boring you out, or shall I just like get it over and done with, then you don't have to listen to me again?
Go, please.
Okay, I'll read it. Okay. So my friend Brian celebrated his birthday last Friday, and on Wednesday, his girlfriend Steph called me and she said, "Theo, are you free on Friday for a birthday party?" So I said, "Oh yes, and I'll bring a present." And she said, No, don't bring any present. I want you to write a poem for Brian." And I was like, "I'm on holiday," you know. Okay, and it's really short notice. And poems don't just like come like that, you see. But of course, over the phone, I said yes. And then after I put down the phone and started regretting what I had just done. But I did eventually write a poem because it was something that I had been thinking about for a while. I mean, not Brian, but the subject of the poem was something that I've been thinking about for a while. And it's essentially about how initially when starting to write a poem, you can't just you can't just put down one line and then keep editing the line, and then when that line is perfect, I will write my next line. It doesn't work like that. You have to sort of accept that the first line that you write down will be an imperfect line that you might not use in the final draft of the poem, but that first line will still be your foundation for whatever next lines you're going to write. And then when you're done, you come back and edit the whole thing as a whole, because the entire poem has to make sense to you when you're editing it, not just that one line that has to be shaped to be nice. And so, and then, being an impressionistic teenager, I started thinking about, oh yeah, that's just like, friends. So at first, you might not really like a person, but later on, when he becomes a really good friend, you just have to bear with the first part of, not really liking him. And later on, when he becomes this is not about Brian, okay? Brian was a really, really good friend from the start. But yeah, so I linked it to that. And okay, I'll stop blabbering and just read the poem. Okay, so there's a quote from Simon & Garfunkel, and I like them. That's how the quote said. To journey in expectation of a poem, one must accept as beginning some jarring coincidence of words, as if to receive, then endure, their company before friendship, fearing throughout their absence from fraught final drafts, yet holding them still till fuller lines emerge. It is difficult. Such words are free to plead and please. In verses other than your own, they thrive and talk. None seems at first more significant than last, heard in a hallway, hidden on a bus. But to view a finished piece, all letters in a tall, meticulous stack, like a gathering of characters, each measured, weighed, and held close, is to discover after hours that the first words formed built only to this end. No blessing is chance. The ones taken for accident, placed to fill slow, unfinished rhymes, join into reason. Stanzas speak, segue, a written conversation. This is what lasts, at last, past the cadence of acquaintance, the still knowing silence of the page. Yeah. Okay, thank you. Okay, and so now I'll go and sit there. And
that sounds good.
Yeah.
Perhaps you can swap places with Ren Chun. That would be good. Yeah. We've been very Singaporean, processing poets very quickly.